everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where'd you come from?
I'm Denise Philips, or do I say Denise McLean?
Yeah.
I don't know. So my maiden name is Denise McLean. My married is Denise Philips, and I'm from Beaumont, Dublin 9.
And it's mad because one, Denise, I didn't realise that's where you were from. Two, how long has it taken for the two of us to sit down together?
I know, honest to God. We did record, but it just went out the window in COVID.
Yeah.
But it's great to be here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, because you are just down the road from me.
I am. So my salon is in Whitehall, Dublin 9. So where I grew up in Dublin, that's where my salon is. And that's where I was working today. So it was 2 minutes down the road.
Fab. Come here, tell me about growing up. You grew up in Beaumont, so what was that like, and how many in the family and so on?
Okay, so I'm from a family of 2 siblings. I have a brother, older, sister, younger. So I'm the middle child. And then obviously my parents. And I grew up, my main childhood was in Celtic Park in Dublin 9. It's Whitehall. And yeah, I had a very strong family. My mother's very, very strong family and very good family. High morals, working class. My parents both worked, and they came from working class families as well. And yeah, a really happy childhood. I would say that my mum was the main mentor in our lives as children. My father worked very hard, so he was a coal man. So he was gone at 6 in the morning, and he wouldn't be home till 10 in the evening. So my mum was the main person in our lives. So I would say that she was kind of a single mother in one sense.
Really?
Well, yeah, she had to do everything alone because my father was working so much. But my dad is an amazing father. I think he was probably, I say now he's probably equal. He's an amazing father and husband, but I wouldn't say he was a great co-parent. You know, I'd say my mum had to do an awful lot with us because I think back then men just worked, didn't they? Like the women were just kind of at home. But my mum is a very intelligent woman. She's very bright, and she was the brains behind my dad's coal business. When the coal started to not be, no one was having open fires anymore, he was a bookmaker.
Right.
So he worked as a bookmaker at weekends with a man called Kevin, who was the coal man over the south side of Dublin. So my dad was the north side coal man and Kevin was the south side coal man. Now my dad was a jockey, so he left school at 12, moved to the Curragh, met my mum. My mum's a Kildare woman, and he wasn't good enough to be a jockey. So when my mum got pregnant with my brother, my mum said, you need to get a job. So my grandmother had a shop and a post office in Beaumont, and at the side of it was a yard. So my dad changed it into a coal yard, and he fixed punchers and he sold briquettes, and he'd done that for 15 years.
So my brother was in the Curragh as well.
Yeah.
He was in the Curragh as well, and again, he didn't make it. But isn't it mad that, like, at 12 years of age, could you imagine when Jude is 12?
I know.
Sending him off to the Curragh on his own.
I know.
To live that life.
And my dad, so my dad only has one brother, and he went to Trinity College. So he was really bright, and my dad still can barely read and write, but he was really good at maths. So he done the bookmaking at the weekend with Kevin, and they bought sites, pitches on stood out and rain, hail, snow, and you know, that was the game. And then lucky enough, when the coal business started to, you know, wind down, he actually opened up bookmaker shops in Swords in River Valley and on the All Swords Road on the way into town. And it was in the middle of the boom when there was a lot of money to be made as a bookmaker, and that kind of financially secured my parents. I would never say they struggled, but they worked really hard. So like they lived in a rented house on Beaumont Road and then bought a home when I was about 6 or 7. So we were rich in a way, as in like, you know, we definitely weren't poor.
Yeah.
But my parents worked extremely hard for it.
Do you have memories? Like, whole coal thing, like, I just think it's brilliant.
It was so funny.
Yeah, what's your memories of
So,
him?
like, my dad was, like, black and coal. And he drove a yellow pickup truck. And it was an open truck. So, like, you'd get up on the back of it and you'd be going around the estate in it. But my name was Maclean.
Yeah.
So, they all called me Mac Dirty. Because my dad would drop us to school in the coal truck, like, and he was black. I can't really remember a time, maybe on a Sunday or something, that my dad was clean. Like, he was literally black from head to toe, hands, you know, and all the lads worked in the coal yard. My grandparents' house was in the shop at the side of it. So my dad will always tell stories that, like, I would have been like, I want to work in the coal yard. If Stephen, my brother, was working there, if he can work there, I can work there. And my dad was like, you're a girl, and that doesn't matter. If my brother can do it, I can do it. And my dad said, like, the women would be given out to him. She shouldn't be in that coal yard. And, like, I'd be black. I'd be in, like, high, deep, fixing punchers. I had the best memories there, like, the best. I didn't want to work. My granny would say, you can come into the post office, and I'd say, no, I want to be out in the coal yard. It was just into the thick of things.
Yeah.
And also my dad used to bring me on the runs, because back then people wouldn't have money to pay for their coal bill, and if they seen my dad coming, they'd shut the doors. So he'd send me in, and I'd knock on the door and say, is your mum there? And she'd say, yeah. And I'd say, the call money. Like, so yeah, it was a great life. Like, it really was.
Oh my God, it's just fabulous to hear. I think I said this before, I'll have to sit down with your dad one day, because I'm sure he's just got so many stories. Like,
such a great character. Like, I could not be more grateful for the home I grew up in. It was the most non-judgmental, open, like, if I done something, I could openly say I done it with no judgment.
Right.
They were very understanding parents, and very, I couldn't wish for a better set of parents.
Tell me about your nanny, your granny.
So I've two grandmothers, Jane and Mac. So my grandmother, my mum's mum, Betty, was a nun before she got married. So she got rheumatic fever.
So many stories.
I know. She got rheumatic fever in the convent, and they said, we can't look after her anymore, and they sent her home. Her mother died. She devoted her life to her mother at 16, went to the convent, became a nun. She was obviously very holy. She married, had 8 children, and my mum is the youngest of 8. She was a saint. She was the most beautiful grandmother. She'd such great faith. That's where probably my faith comes from. She helped rear all of her grandchildren, 22 of them. She was one of them women that, like, you had so much admiration for. She was the proper Irish granny. She was a lovely woman. She only died 7 years ago. And then my granny from my dad was the polar opposite. She lived life to the fullest, went to the dogs every weekend with her friends, drank whiskey. She was the postmistress in Beaumont. She was 4'2", like, so glamorous. She went to the hairdressers every week. She was the young granny, but actually died when I was 15. So she actually died quite young. So she was the young granny, and my granny Betty was the old granny, but Granny Betty lived much longer. They were actually great friends.
Were they?
Yeah, they were great friends. My granny Betty used to get the bus down from Kildare and get off at the bus stop outside my granny's house and come down and mind us. Like, when I think back to my childhood, the people that I had in it, like, were incredible, like, incredible women, really. The women in my life were probably more significant and actually better people than the men when I was growing up.
Do you think that's where you got your work ethic? Like, who do you think in all of that did you get your work ethic from?
Well, my surroundings were complete work ethic. Probably my mum, for its determination. She pushed through. My mother owns a property management company 20 odd years, but she was the woman that ran my dad's coal yards and bookmakers. And back then, there wasn't women in business, and they weren't respected. And the things that I saw and the stance that I seen her go through were extraordinary. She would not take no for an answer. People would say, I don't want to deal with you. I want to deal with the man. And she'd say, if you don't want to deal with me, you're dealing with nobody. Now, my mother is a lady. Like, I wish I was a little more like her, but she's a complete lady. But by God, I definitely get my determination, and I would say my brains from my mum. And then my dad, he sat at the table with us, done times tables, maths. Like, we worked in the bookmakers growing up, so everything was done manually. Like, your lucky 15 wasn't on a computer, it was done in your brain. You know, if someone won doubles, like me and my brother grew up in the bookmakers then. So all through school I worked there as well. So it was kind of like the way I am with my kids. We went with my parents while they worked. And then the rewards, we spent our summers in Wexford in the mobile. And back then, like, that was like that was amazing. Like, my mum's whole family. So my granny had a mobile home site down in Wexford, and all of my mum's siblings had a site. So I spent my summers and any time outside school down there with all of my cousins, like outside playing rounders.
Don't you just like hope and pray that your own kids are gonna, and I see that through your page that Beth does have that. I seen you down in Wexford, like, but like, when you just hope and pray that we can offer our kids that innocence. Definitely.
Like, when I think now to the times now, it's so different. Like, we were literally reared with our cousins and our aunties and uncles all together. You were in homes with, you know, all of the people together, and, you know, your aunties and uncles gave out to you, and that was okay. You know, they could give out to you, and there wasn't like, it wasn't even a second thought. I hope, we're living in a new world now, and we're trying to make the best of what we can. And I know people are saying that it's the new norm, but it's very hard because we've watched our grandparents and our parents rear us, each generation the same. So it is hard to get around trying to rear your child in a different way than you've been reared, because we want our kids to have, if we've had a happy life, we want our kids to replicate that, I think.
100%. It's so hard though. Sometimes I have Amelia and she's 11 and she's torture, you know, but I'm sure I was probably torture when I was 11. It's just so hard, like, you know what I mean?
I was torture. I gave my mother and father a terrible time. I was wild.
In what way? Tell me.
Like, I took drugs. I tried drugs, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Not hard drugs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I won't say specific, but yeah. And I remember, like, my mother saying to me, did you take drugs? And I said, yeah, I did. Like, we call my brother Golden Balls, but only because I was so wild. No, I was wild. Like, I was very headstrong and determined, and I wanted to try things out and for myself.
Yeah.
I remember my mother, and she'll tell you the story, like, I was 16 and my mum said, if you're not going to follow these rules, you need to move out. And I got my bags and packed them and moved out. And I rented a room in a house. Like, I was so headstrong. When I think now, I'm like, how did my mother not end up in a mental home with me? Like, she, like, I was drinking down laneways, and
oh my God.
Yeah, I would imagine that I was a hard child to mother.
Right.
You know. But now we're best friends.
Yeah. I've never never ever think of you like that ever. Like, it's mad. Yeah. No, never. And did you stay long in, like, did you live there because you moved then, didn't you?
So 17, when I was actually 16 doing my leaving cert. So it was in around that time that all that kind of kicked off. I stayed with my granddad. My parents moved to Kildare, and my mother set up our business down there. And my brother had bought his own house at this stage, so he was like 19, so he was living out. I was between my granddads, and then when I done my leaving cert, I did move to Newbridge.
Right.
But I rented a room in a house down there. So I was beside my mum and dad. My mum said, like, coming in, taking toilet paper and beans, and because I was on apprentice, I was hairdressing, like, I was on apprentice wage, like, it was like, I can't even remember how much it was. Would it have been like £200? And that was like a good wage. Like.
What was the transition like from Dublin to Kildare for you? Like leaving your mates and all that?
So that I kind of still was up and back
Right.
a lot for like the first 2 years. So, and a lot of my friends from Dublin would come up and down, and we'd go out in Newbridge, and it was a whole different world for me. I wasn't popular in school. I had red hair, and I was kind of overweight, and I was very sporty, and I was very tomboyish. I was wild. I hung out with a lot of lads,
Right.
like a lot of boy friends, and I was not into girly stuff. Like, I wasn't sexually active till later, and I was competitive and sporty, and like working in my dad's businesses or working on a Saturday in the hairdressers. So I was always like doing something, do you know? So I still obviously have my same best friends that I had in school from Beaumont, but because I was working in Newbridge, I got friends pretty quick.
Right.
With other hairdressing girls. So like, I was there at 17, so I'm still like 20 years later, I still have a great group of friends that I'd like, you know, because I was only a second or third year trainee, like, so I was out every weekend down there, and yeah, it was wild. Oh my God.
Where did you meet Mark?
So, a funny story, like, so Mark was my first boyfriend when I hit Newbridge. And I went out with him for about 6 months, and I was besotted with him. Like, I was head over heels about him. And we broke up, and I started going out with a guy called Damien. And Mark went off on his way, and he started going out with a girl. And I went out with Damien for like 4 or 5 years, and Damien died Christmas Eve.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
While you were going out with him?
So we travelled to Australia together. He was my first love. Oh God, I'll get upset. So we were always breaking up and getting back together, but we were broken up about 4 weeks, and we lived together, like. And he took a brain hemorrhage on Christmas Eve. I just finished my last client in the salon, and his sister rang me. Whew.
Take your time. Take your time.
So I was 25, and that was the complete turning point in my whole life. I never took a drug after that day. So Damon died, and it was horrific.
Let me get tissue, hang on. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, so, yeah, he took a brain hemorrhage. He was also very young. I'm trying to think, was he 25 and was I 23? Or was I 25 and he 27? I can't remember now. But, yeah, that was that. And I'd say my life completely changed because I said I never... Now, he didn't die directly from drugs, but, you know, we were partying, like, most weekends, drinking and whatever, like. But I never wanted my family to ever go through what his family went through or what I went through ever again, because I'm still really close to his family. So that was what really changed me. And then it's so funny because Mark ended up on drugs in them few years. And not many people know that, but my husband is a recovering drug addict.
Is he?
Yeah. And me and Mark met up about 9 months after Damon died again. And Mark was after being in Culmurra.
Okay. So
the next year of my life was spent learning to help a recovering drug addict. So me and his mum spent a lot of time. Obviously, me and Mark stayed friends for that duration. But obviously his life went into one direction. Harder drugs than I would ever dwell on or ever go near. And he obviously got help, and he's one of the lucky ones that never relapsed. Thank God, touch wood. I think that's like...
Not lucky, I don't think. I think that he's worked, obviously, he's
Oh,
worked
yeah.
and you've worked, and his family
Yeah.
with support have worked very hard to keep him sober.
Do you know what? I've never talked about this across any of my platforms because it's not my story to tell. But my story to tell is coming from a wife that lives with a recovering drug addict, and something that I'm so bloody proud of. But what I will tell you was a shift in my life, because when you're 23 or 24 and your group of friends are people who party, and you decide that you don't want to be in that life, you haven't got many friends. And that is very hard. So we both found ourselves in a very similar position. And I was lucky that I wasn't a drug addict. I don't know what a definition of a drug addict is, but I wasn't. I could function without partying. But it meant restarting my life and really looking at stuff. And lucky enough, me and Mark found each other at that time, because his group of friends, if he had have went back down that road, and we've seen how easy it could have been to slip back. So it's people and things and places. And if you surround yourself with the same people, things and places, eventually you will slip. But that's really hard, because if you've nobody else, you might think that you can, or you are strong enough. Like, I could surround myself in them settings, no problem. But Mark couldn't have. So it was great that we had each other, because you don't, if you're taking drugs, you don't want to hang out with someone who's not. You don't. Like, if you're eating a chocolate biscuit, you want someone to have that chocolate biscuit with you, so the guilt isn't there.
Absolutely.
Surrounded with it. So for the next year, I actually attended Culmera meetings and how to support somebody that's, me and his mother. And it was so great. It actually healed me, because you've got to remember, I was also grieving for Damien. So the next year was actually...
What did you see in Mark, though, for you to do? You must have saw something in him.
Mark will tell this story to our friends, that I actually met him at the shop one day, and Damien was dead a few months, and we were standing there talking. Mark was homeless at the time. Yeah. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he was like, "What?" I was like, do you realise that you are so much better than this? Like, seriously, you have a beautiful daughter, your family that love you. His mother will tell you it was the hardest thing she ever had to do as a mother, to tell her son he cannot come home. He had to hit rock bottom in order to come up. And he said he'll remember me just saying, like, looking at him in the eyes, like, you can do better than this. And he's like signed himself in 3 weeks after that. Like I said, I always stayed in contact with Mark, because he's a special person. And like, people think that people that end up on drugs or take drugs are bad people, but Mark just got into like a bad role. And I was like, that could have been Damien, or that could have been anybody. And I just knew that he had so much to give life. Like, I just knew he could recover. And I encouraged him. And yeah, like, we can't even remember the person that Mark was during that time. Like, I often sometimes have to remind him, you know, if somebody would like pass judgment, I'm like, oh, hold on a minute now. There wasn't that long ago that, you know, you were there, or I was, you know, or somebody, because it's a life that is so far removed from us now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't speak about Mark's story, but his story is incredible. Like, incredible. The trauma he went through, to being an addict, to recovering to where he is now, is like, it just, he's one of the most incredible people ever.
So are you.
Thanks.
But we don't give ourselves enough credit. Like, I had Carl's girlfriend, Chloe, and we've so many mothers and so many girlfriends out there. And Chloe said, and Carl, she said, if I can give any advice, she commented on the page, she said, to any girlfriend, any partner, any wife, don't give up on them.
No.
Don't give up on them.
No. I don't think, I think if you can see a fight in somebody and you know that person is a good person. I mean, everybody's a good person. It's your chimp or your ego sometimes that mightn't be a nice person. But you know the difference between someone who isn't out to harm somebody. There's a complete difference. Yeah. And 90% of the time, there's a good person there. You know, somebody's child, someone's brother, someone's husband, someone's father. There's somebody there, like. And I think because my parents are so non-judgmental, they pass that trait to each and one of me and my siblings. And I think because of that, I never judge anyone, because everybody has a journey. And without that journey, you're not the person, you can't be the person that you are today without a journey.
Because you have to, you look at your page and look at your journey. And I wondered, I did, be honest with you, Denise, I wondered, how is she like that? How? She had to have gone through something. She had to walk a road to get where she is today, and not just the IVF road that you walked. I was like, there has to be something that she's walked to have your outlook.
Yeah. I believe everybody has a story, but it's just realising how significant your journey is. I always believed that I was destined for great things. I was so determined for success. And my idea of success is not money. It's not being the best. It's been the best that you can give in them circumstances. So whether that's at home or friendships or business or whatever it is. I mean, sometimes society teaches us to be a certain way, and that if we're not a certain way, that we haven't succeeded. But that's not the case. Like, your parents teach you. I'm just going to give you an example. So my parents reared us as Catholics, and that society should show you to go to school, go to college or do a trade, get a job, get married, have kids. But what you don't realise is that you can break them rules with no judgment. That's what society have kind of told us that we should do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to.
True.
And it's okay. So my brother's an atheist now.
Okay.
And I remember saying to my mum, do you know Stephen doesn't, like, he was an altar boy. Do you know now Stephen doesn't believe in God? And she was like, yeah, I believe in God and I have great faith. And then my sister has completely different, like, faith. But we're all from the same household. But what we were allowed to do was break the rules. This is what we're going to teach you as parents. But at the same sentence, it's okay for you to take what you want out of that and do what you want out of that. And then also, because I couldn't conceive naturally, I was lucky enough that my mother, again, allowed me to bend rules. So although I felt like a failure when I couldn't conceive naturally, it wasn't the main burden on me.
Do you think it would have been a burden?
I think from society's point of view, women feel very ashamed that they can't do something that their mother and grandmother could do naturally. Whereas I believe that I was so lucky to be put in the position that I was put in to fight, to have my child, to allow me to use science to give me my daughter. And that's, you know, because people ask me how I kept on going. And I kept going because I felt privileged. I kept on saying, I'm actually privileged to be in this position. I can't believe that there's another option for me to have my dream. And then when we went to look at adoption, I was like, I can't believe that I'm in this position where I could potentially be able to adopt another child. So my dream was to become a mother, but I didn't necessarily care what route I had to go.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I was 20,000 euros of a loan out when I had Beth.
Take it back for me to when you realised, if you don't mind, that you couldn't. I'm just going to ask Paul to put on the heat. Paul, you put on the heat, please. Sorry. To the very beginning, when you realised, one, you couldn't conceive, and I know you talk about that you don't want to trigger anyone else or anyone else's stories like that, but just take it back from you to what was it like? So you and Mark moved on. Then obviously it was in recovery, and then how long then, what happened after that?
So I actually knew before I was with Mark, but you know,
Did you?
yeah.
Okay.
So when I was travelling in Australia, I was on the pill. I kept on bleeding through the pill. I actually had a miscarriage at 18 for Damien.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was 3 months pregnant. I'm trying to think. I was about turning 19. I was 3 months pregnant. I was on the pill when I got pregnant. I was 3 months pregnant. I lost the baby. I had to have 2 DNCs after that because there was membranes left in me and I was constantly bleeding. When I think now to that whole miscarriage experience, it was so traumatic. I was in Wexford General Hospital, 18 years of age or 19 years of age, given a leaflet, you know, and sent home.
Wow, Denise.
Yeah.
Dean, like that path, so like the miscarriage, losing Damien.
Yeah. When Damien died, I used to think, oh, if I had a baby now, there'd be at least something to live on in his memory and, you know, still to have that connection with him, even though he wasn't here, and all the do's and don'ts. But the following years after the miscarriage, my periods I never got back. It was irregular. I was really late getting my periods. I was 16.
Really?
Yeah. So I always had issues. So I think it was about 6 months after Damien died, I was actually back and forth for tests because of the irregular periods, and they were saying it was stress and stuff, and I was getting loads of tests done. And the gynecologist in Portlaoise said you could possibly have difficulties conceiving again. That was kind of it. You know, you didn't really ask questions. It was... The fertility side of things in Ireland is so far back. I mean, it's still not recognised as a disease. We're one of the only countries in the EU, us and Lithuania, who don't recognise infertility as a disease. So we're quite far behind, and we've got very little help in that departments. A lot more now than like 20 years ago, or 18 years ago. But it's still not funded here. It's just unexplained infertility for a lot of people. I mean, anyone with polycystic ovaries is kind of passed from pillar to post. Yeah. Unless you pay privately here. Unfortunately, and I love Ireland, it's not great. So women are left to just deal with their unexplained infertility with no financial help, which is is hard again, because not only do they have no routes to take, there's no hospitals, they're all private. The minute a woman, they don't want to go to a private hospital. They're like, you know, they don't want to go to an IVF clinic. They feel shameful. You'll see it if you've ever walked into an IVF clinic. The women are sitting now at the moment on their own, but back then with their partner with their head down. There's no eye contact. It's a very. I used to laugh and say to Marcus, nearly like a brothel, like you're like walking in, you know, like hoping that no one will see you walk in. You're not telling anyone that you're going.
So sad.
It's a bit better now, but the last time that I was there was when I went for the scan and I found out I was naturally pregnant on Jude, and it was COVID, so there was no, they didn't even have their partners to hold their hands in the waiting room. So I could only imagine what women are going through now on their roads, because I get DMs all of the time. A lot of the clinics aren't allowing them even in for transfers. So, oh my God. And these are private clinics, so they don't have to abide. Yeah. Well, in my opinion, they don't have to abide, but I think it kind of suits, maybe, you know, COVID suits some industries to kind of make up rules and stuff and go along. I mean, you're not allowed to have your husband in with you giving birth. I mean, you know, Rebecca, I know I'm going off topic now, but when I got pregnant on Jude, obviously, it was all COVID, and I said, oh, I don't care if I have Mark in with me or not. I'm well able to have this baby on my own, sure, be grand. And when I got COVID, I wanted Mark. I was crying, saying, I want my husband here with me, because I don't think I'll be able to get through this. So I can only imagine how lonely for, you know, first time mums that haven't went through this, or IVF women, or, you know, what women are going through now. I don't even want, it's a whole podcast I think that needs for that, because it's immoral what women are going through on their own in hospitals at the moment, having, you know, given birth to their children without their partner by them sides. Yeah, I know it can happen to any of us. I mean, we can be rushed in, but no one being told prior that you're not going to have your partner. And another part of it that I think, like, women love their babies the minute they're born, but a lot of men have to grow to love, and that connection. It's terrible. Yeah, it is. It's terrible what's going on. Anyway,
no, but the poor men, they're worried about their wife, partner, and then they want to have that skin on skin that we get, because for us it's straight away, like that connection's unbelievable, but for the men, as you said, it might have to take that little bit.
Yeah, and someone told me the reason why babies look like the man is because a man doesn't automatically see that or feel that connection. Yeah, I think it was actually Dr. Lou. She'd be like, no, that wasn't me. But, you know, said that, you know.
But it could be true, because it's really that, like
90% of babies that are born are the image of the dads when they're born. Yeah, I think they say a woman, not all of the time, but like a lot of the time, just instantly loves that baby, like that love that you feel. But a man, it's growth. You know, it takes them not all the time. I'm sure there's plenty of men who see their baby and just feel that instant connection. But I think a lot of men that I've spoken to have said, you know, it took them a little while to feel the love that they felt. But yeah.
Can I ask you, was it, and again, maybe it's not like a question to ask, but was it easier for you knowing that you couldn't conceive naturally to go down the IVF route?
No, because I done IUI thinking that because I was under 30 and I was healthy and all, they said try IUI first. And when I think of it now, so IUI, for those who don't know, is basically the same as IVF. You're taking the same drugs. The only difference is that the sperm can be injected in when you're ovulating, and then hopefully the egg meets the sperm and you get an embryo. IVF is when the egg is taken out of the womb and mixed with the sperm outside of the womb and then put back in. But your drug intake to get the eggs, basically with IVF, your whole system is stopped. So you go into a menopausal state and they reboot it with the help of drugs so they can control exactly what is happening. Amazing. So basically, I had no periods. So I could go back to back with my cycles because I had no lining in my womb. So when they put a camera or checked my inside, my lining was 0.1. So I never had that white little line. So that I never had a time of my cycle. So my eggs never grew. So on the 1st of December, if you put the camera inside me, my eggs were the same as the 20th of December. Okay. My lining and my eggs never changed. So my eggs never grew without drugs. So they grew my eggs with the drugs, and then we tried to obviously have sex. They give you a trigger injection, so it makes basically it triggers the eggs to release, and then you have intercourse at that exact time. That was actually more hard on our relationship. As Mark says, thank God I could perform. Because, no, literally, if he didn't perform, that's your whole cycle gone.
Yeah.
And the stress, you're like, go now.
Yeah.
I mean, you have like an hour window or like a 2-hour window.
I've always wondered about that, like, is it? And I think I asked someone before this, is it so clinical, like, drop your pants, we have to do this right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Legs up in the air. Like,
I'm not laughing, do you know what I mean? I'm like
no, yeah. Like, don't have a drink. Like, you're going to be, and you've got to remember that you've got to get to that stage. So your cycle can be cancelled at any time. So you could have put like 4 weeks of complete work into a cycle to get told that your eggs aren't big enough, or you could release, your eggs could burst before you got to have sex. It is the most horrendous road that a couple or a woman can go through. And I've been through a lot in my life because each hurdle you get to, so you have to get healthy eggs. The womb has to be healthy. So if you've polycystic ovaries or cysts or anything, they have to be all removed before anything. So you've healthy eggs. Then the eggs go in and mix with the sperm. For example, my track record, 40 eggs. Amazing. I haven't got a clue what's going on, right? You've 40 eggs, Denise. Oh my God, amazing. 16 of them were good. Oh my God, brilliant. Now let's fertilise it with Mark's sperm. 6 survived. Oh my God, amazing. Now we need to get 6 of these embryos to day 5, because between day 1 and day 3, they multiply. So a day 3 embryo to a day 5 embryo is miles apart. The cells in a day 3 embryo is only small, and then to day 5 is basically a really good embryo. Its chance of survival is pretty strong. Now let's get it to day 5. 1. Denise has 1 left. Okay, this is Beth's cycle. So 40 eggs, 16 were okay. 6 mixed with Mark's sperm. 1 survived. Now, Denise, you're overstimulated because the drug intake was too big. We cannot transfer this embryo. It now needs to go into the freezer. Now it goes to the freezer, and now we're going to get your womb ready for transfer. Okay, load more drugs. Now your womb is ready, Denise. Let's take Beth out of the freezer. She has to defrost looking like a perfect fresh embryo, or she's not being transferred. Let's transfer. Perfect transfer. Went straight to the lining. Is there. Looks nice and secure. 2-week wait. 2-week wait to see if your embryo survives. Every day, Googling. Every day, not wanting to move. Afraid to nearly go to the toilet. You're still taking drugs. Your 2-week wait, you do your test, you get your positive. That was Beth's cycle. I done that on television. Grade A, so your embryos are graded. The next cycle that I done when Beth was, I think she was 18 months, very similar. 40 eggs, 16 survived, 16 were good, 6 mixed with Mark's sperm, 2 survived. 2 grey days. It was my first time that I was allowed a fresh transfer. It was a grade A transfer. Luda was like, oh my God, can't believe that transfer went so well and it was televised. I'm going to look like from a doctor's point of view, the transfer was perfect. I was 10 days on my 2-week wait, and I said to Mark, we were at Blessington Lakes, I said, our baby is gone. He was like, what? So like, you are pregnant. When that embryo is transferred into you, you are pregnant. Like, you've sore boobs, like you've pregnancy symptoms, obviously.
I wouldn't think that was obvious.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, see, because you know it.
But the amount of drugs you're on, so you're like, I always say to all my women that text me, like, believe you're pregnant. Live as a pregnant woman. Wake up every morning. Look in that mirror. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. Feel that baby. Nurture that embryo. Like today, today we're going to have a great day. I'm going to mind you. I'm going to, like, I done that for 11 cycles. Like, yeah. And Mark says, like, I say that on Beth's cycle was my last one. I was at, like, my relationship was on its legs.
11 cycles, you did?
Yeah.
I didn't know you did 11.
Yeah, Beth was cycle 9. I done a cycle live on television that failed. I done my pregnancy test took it.
Yeah, go back to that, what you said about you knew day 10 you were saying to Mark you lost a baby.
Yeah, so we went to Blessington Lakes and I'm sitting in the back of the car and I was like, I'm not pregnant. And he was like, what? I was like, I was so in tune. I always say that I was so in tune with my body, although I could beg to differ with Jude, but I just knew I wasn't pregnant. I could feel the loss. And 2 or 3 days later, I done the pregnancy test live on television because Mark said that evening, do you want to do a test? And I said, no, I want to do that because if I want this journey to be real. Them camera crew were with me all of the time. And if I'm not pregnant, I want the pain to be what these women will go through like me. And if I'm pregnant, I want the joy to be the joy that these women. I want to do this to educate what women are going through daily. And then they didn't televise the next round that I done after that because it was cancelled the day before the embryo came out of the freezer because I was violently sick. I was actually at an awards with Jane from England and I was in the bathroom and I was just violently getting sick and I was like to Mark, my transfer is tomorrow. I can't transfer tomorrow. My last embryo. I can't because how is this baby going to survive when all I've done all week long is get sick? I'm weak. I'm exhausted. I can't do this. And he said, okay, let's cancel. Because I was like, this was definitely my last chance to have baby number 2 because I could not put my family, Beth, and my husband through another cycle when I had a baby, if that makes sense. I could put myself through IVF, no problem, and I could probably put Mark through it again, but I couldn't put my daughter through it again because every single person is going through, like, every journey that you are on, whether it is having a baby, recovering from drugs, I'm just talking from my own life experiences, you're not just going through that. Every single one of your family is going through that. So if you're going through cancer, so are your family. Like, it's not just you on that journey, it's everybody around you. So my mum is an IVF survivor. My dad is, my sister is, my brother is, Mark's family are, Mark is, but now Beth was. And I said, no, I can't do it to Beth again.
Can I ask you, when you're about to do that other cycle and decide not to do it, how old is Beth?
18 months.
And you have a new baby and everything like that. Do you get the, okay, we have her, so she's here, and that's grand, but let's just concentrate here. We're just going to concentrate to get this other baby, get this other baby, get this other baby. Does that happen? Like, does that, and then do people say to you, what are you being selfish for? You have a baby.
Yeah, people say that. And like, we do catch ourselves saying that about everything in life. Oh, don't be giving out. Sure, you're one down the road's worse off than you. Or, you know, aren't you lucky? My mum used to always say to me, you'll have your number. Oh, Mum, I can't have my number. My number was 2. It's actually probably 3. You can't have your number. I'm infertile. No, you have your number. Like, I think women feel bad. And like, I get that. Because since I've had Jude, I remember finding out I was pregnant on Jude. And I thought, and I said to Mark, I wish I could give Jude to somebody else right now. So I've already got Beth. I'm so grateful for her. I'm a mother. There's so many women out there that want to be a mother. Can I give this baby to them? Because I want them to feel what I feel. Because I do feel complete with Beth. And I felt, because I had tried to give Beth a sibling. When I knew that I tried my very best, I was probably okay with not having another child. Even though I did always say to Mark, I do believe that we're going to have another baby. I didn't know if it was me getting pregnant or adopting or fostering, because I do believe there's a special role for Mark that he's going to do in his life. So I do believe that, I always believed that another child would come into our family somehow. So when I got pregnant with Jude, I honestly felt that I wanted to give this experience to somebody that was also deserving of it.
Did you feel guilt to your community, or did you feel like you were betraying your community?
I felt like 2 sides of it. I felt, oh my God, this is going to give me and these women have. I'm not just telling them that I'd failed IVF. They've seen me. They've seen me do IVF. I'm not just coming to them later on saying, I done IVF and I failed it, and now I've became pregnant naturally. They watched me.
11 cycles, Denise.
Well, they watched me after Beth. They watched me injecting myself daily. They watched me taking drugs. They watched me nearly kill Mark. I don't know how he's still with me. They watched my journey. They came along with me. So I think 99.9% of people knew that my journey was real. Because they seen me. Like, seeing someone and hearing of someone's journey is completely different. Like, seeing someone's pain, like if you're living someone's pain, so if you're living someone's journey, which people did with me on television, I think they're a lot more understanding of it. So I didn't get very much. I didn't feel guilt, and I got very little bad. Because I don't feel guilty, because I feel that my story can give people so much more hope than guilt. I feel that if there's a woman sitting at home, that she could look at Beth and say, that was after fails, like that was after rounds of IVF. And then they can look at Jude and say, that was natural. So I definitely think that my situation or story can give a lot more people hope than it can envy. I hope that people can look at Beth and say, she was made in a lab with science. And I hope then they can look at Jude and say, that's why I called him Jude, St. Jude. the saint of hopeless cases, because I was a hopeless case to ever get pregnant naturally. And I believe that everybody, even if you feel that you're a hopeless case, that there's always that little light like shining. There's always a hope or chance of every single person getting a miracle. Your miracle could be that your brother gets through recovery, or that your mom gets through her cancer, or we have to have hope and faith in ourselves.
You said there about Mark, and I really have to meet him. I'm just really interested in him now. That when you said, I'm not doing this tomorrow, I'm not putting myself through, I'm not putting Beth through, I'm not putting you through it. What kind of support was he to you throughout all of that?
Oh my God. Like, honestly, we started IVF the day we came back off a honeymoon. And any couple out there that survive that journey, I was speaking to a client in the salon today that's going through IVF, and she said, we're not telling anybody. And she was like, it was just me and my husband. And I said to her, that is so much pressure on your husband. And she literally was like, oh my God. I said, that is so much pressure. And we were very similar. We didn't tell anybody at the start. They're getting the blunt end of everything. Of the fact that you feel so sad that you're having to purchase and pay to have your baby. We were both working 2 jobs. I was working in Peter Marks. I was teaching in Clane College at night 2 nights a week. Mark was working on the buildings and he was delivering pizzas at night. We paid for every single bit of our fertility treatment on our own. We literally passed each other in the stairway. If Mark wanted to go out with his friends or spend money, there was a problem. Like, I didn't want to be anywhere. I didn't want to go anywhere. All I wanted to do was focus on having a baby. So every waking minute was spoken. There was no fun. It wasn't like he was after marrying somebody that overnight became a mad joke, like a psycho, a calendar, not to see when we were going to see Ed Sheeran or the next concert or when we were going out with our friends, because we still have a great group of friends. I didn't want any of them knowing what we were going through, so he wasn't allowed to speak about it to anybody. Sure, he probably did, but not that I know about. It's a hard life.
That's hard.
It is. Like, are you having that takeaway? Like, if Mark walked across the road sideways, I probably would have blamed that on the fact that his sperm wasn't 100%. Do you get me? Like, there was no takeaways in our house. There was no fun. Sex wasn't even fun. Like, we went from having really nice sex. Obviously, we weren't starting our fertility treatment till after we came back from our honeymoon. But literally came back from our honeymoon to not having sex, to having timed intercourse. Like, when I think back to it, Mark, I have a stepdaughter. He had a child. So he didn't really need to stick around if it was to have a child. I mean, I don't know why he stuck around, because I would have been gone. Like, the things I said to him and the things I done throughout them times, honestly, he should have well been gone.
But you stuck with him.
We stuck each other.
You stuck with him when it was his hardest time.
That's
in
exactly
his life.
what he says, yeah.
You know, you were there for him.
Yeah.
So he's going to be there for you.
Absolutely.
So it just goes to show how much you actually, like, you know, you love each other, like, you know what I mean?
I learned something about relationships, and it's like, you can, if you argue about the issue, you'll survive. So I think a lot of the time with our relationships, we blame, like, you done this, you done that, you said this, you're that. But that's actually not what you're arguing about. You're arguing about the fact that you took the milk out of the fridge or you left the container in the fridge. So learning to let go of your ego and not always have to be right as well is really important. So trying to see things from other people's point of view when you're arguing, like, well, what did I do? Or what could I have done different there? Not what could they have done.
So do you think then that the lessons you learned in Kenwara, is that what it's called?
In Kilmara.
Do you think the lessons you learned then you put to use?
The lessons I learned there was how to not enable a family member. So a lot of the times you've got to remember with addiction comes characteristics. So a lot of the time the addiction might be gone from that specific addiction, but it might move on to something else. And learning to be able to support a family member but not enable is really important, because addicts can manipulate situations very easily. So, and when you love somebody, it's very hard not to enable. Like, it's very hard. Like, if you see somebody in pain and hurt and they're crying, or in any sort of situation, even as a mother, it's very hard to separate your love and life lessons. It's really difficult. You know that as a mother. It's easier sometimes for an easy life as well to just turn a blind eye. So I learned a lot about myself, and learning about yourself is more important than learning about other people's wrongdoings, or, learning about how you can react to situations or how you can be of help in situations, I think is a lot more valuable than being right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tell me about Jude and we'll talk about Beth, because we have to talk about Beth because she's a character. But tell me about Mark's joy with Jude, obviously men and their sons. So
I know, it's crazy. I never obviously realised it until I had a son. So yeah, when we had Jude, he was like, thank you. I suppose he has 2 girls, so he was, like, thank you. I don't know what that is about men, because I do think that's changing a little bit now. But yeah, men, I suppose maybe, is it the family name? Is it they think that they're going to be a replica of them? I'm not sure.
That they can go out and have a game of golf with them or have a pint with them, but like things are changing. Paul has 2 girls and that's all he's ever going to get, but like,
Yeah.
it's just, that's, you're stuck with it, like,
I think your family will be your family.
Yeah.
I don't think that I used to say, I wouldn't care if I gave birth to a sheep. It's mine. I wouldn't care if I gave birth to a dog or a monkey. That's ours. So, but other people could have different opinion on that. Like, some people could just want a girl or just want a boy. And that's okay too. But I just wasn't one of them people. So.
You weren't expecting his joy then when...
No, I wasn't expecting his joy, but like, he's brought so much joy to our house because it was such a miracle. And I don't even know how to explain him. It's like, I feel like I was just given a baby, because there was no real lead up to it. There was no even try, because obviously we tried for Beth, and obviously we tried after Beth, and there was no trying for it. So there was no run up to it, or there was no there was 12 weeks of just...
It was fun.
Yeah. Mark actually was delighted, because for Beth's whole pregnancy, again, I wouldn't walk across the road like without fear of, something happening. So it was actually a blessing, because Mark said, like, them 27 weeks I had a good few pints, and we had a great laugh. We were here, there and everywhere. Whereas for them 27 weeks, Denise, like, I was eating fish, raw fish, gym, running the streets. I was with a personal trainer. I was like, I promise I'm following the plan. He was like, Denise, you're not following the plan. You would not be putting on weight. I'm like, I swear to you, I'm following the plan. So Mark actually was delighted that we didn't know that I was pregnant.
Because it must have been a completely different pregnancy. Like, not to say Jude was a joyous pregnancy, but as you said, there was always concern.
Yeah, because somebody said to me, did you feel like you couldn't celebrate it because of your IVF community? No, I celebrated. I think I was in such a bubble, and all my really close friends, like, were so happy for me that I didn't actually even come into my head to think of it as a negative thing, because the one message I got was like, you have built an IVF community and now it's so triggering. But I couldn't even think down that line. I was so in my own bubble, whirlwind of joy, that I probably wasn't taking into account other people's feelings.
This is the thing for me that I'm kind of like going, but why should you? But I understand where you are, because with every community right now, and we've seen it with your lovely pal Erin over the past couple of days as well, resentment in communities is a terrible thing.
I don't know where it comes from, because I still can't get my head. Now, obviously I can with the IVF community. So, for example, there's a difference between jealousy and envy. One is healthy and one is a little bit unhealthy. So I do think that being envious is a great way to drive yourself. So if you see someone with a lovely home, I think being envy, in a sense, I'd love that, I'm going to get that, is healthy. Being jealous and vindictive in someone's well-being isn't good. So if you are envious of someone's handbag and think, I see that she worked for that.
Yeah.
I love that handbag. I'm also going to work really hard to get that handbag. I think that's really good. I think if you look at me and say, she worked so hard, because let me tell you, everything that I have, including my children, my health, everything I've worked, I got nothing handed to me. Not because my parents wouldn't help me. All of my business is me. Not €1 was gotten from my parents or from Mark's. Same with the IVF journey. Everything we got, we worked from the bottom. I started with nothing, so I'll go out with nothing. It doesn't bother me. I have the ability to earn money, and I'm good at it. So if it's all gone tomorrow, I still own the ability to work hard. So I'll start again.
Very true.
That's where I come from. So when I see people's resentment, like proper resentment towards people, I still don't understand their way of thinking, because my brain doesn't think like that. So I don't give it any time. And I don't, because when somebody tells me that I'm amazing, it's as irrelevant to me to when somebody tells me I'm not. So I don't let anyone's opinion, even when it's amazing, get in on me. So when people tell me, oh my God, Denise, you're brilliant. Oh, Beth's brilliant. And like and I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm thankful for somebody taking their time out to say that to me. But it doesn't mean anything to me.
Doesn't now?
No, it doesn't.
Why?
Because if it's somebody I know, if it's someone that knows me, not someone that's looking in on my life, if someone that knows me, like my team members, the girls who work with me, work for me, work with me daily, they know me. If it's my team in Voodoo that literally spend 10 hours a day with me, like on the phone, back and forth. If it's people who know me, tell me I'm doing a good job, I probably will feed into that. But if it's somebody who's just looking in on my life, and like I'm very grateful for these people because these are the people that support me, but I don't let it feed into my ego, because then if that person turns around and tells me I'm disgusting, it will also have a knock on me. So if I allow people that don't know me's opinion, whether it's good or bad, to be irrelevant to me, does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't think you should use the word irrelevant. I think what you said is you've said it right. You said, I don't let it feed into my ego.
Yes.
That's what you say.
Yes. So I don't allow people when they say to me, oh, you're amazing, for me to think that I'm the same as everybody else. And
exactly.
I'm no different. And like, you know, when people get starstruck when they see somebody, they're like, oh, like, just say like, I love Julia Roberts, but I don't think that I'd be starstruck when I seen her, because she's just the same as my next door neighbour. She's a human being. Like, I don't know her enough to be like shaken with excitement to see her. I'd love to see her because I love her in movies, but I just think that every single person, wherever you are the same. So when I think that I'm as amazing as you, and I think I'm as amazing as everybody that works with me, I think everybody is amazing. I think everyone has the biggest thing that you can show up in this world and do is to be yourself. And if you go out every day and be yourself, I think you've given the world the best.
True.
You know, so
True.
I don't mean that people's opinions are irrelevant to me. I mean that I won't let it feed into my ego.
Yeah.
Because then if someone decides that they don't like me, then I'll spend my day being upset about it.
Yeah.
And that, I have to say, all of the time that I'm on social media, I've probably gotten 10 bad messages. I'm so lucky with the community. I don't know how I would be if I did ever get trolled, because I have really good friends. I get trolled daily, like daily trolled.
Disgusting stuff that we saw this week. Absolutely disgusting.
I can't say how I deal with it because I'm not in their boat, but I do try and support my friends and tell them, like, the only reason that somebody said to me one day, why does Beth talk in American accent? And I said, do you know what? The next time you see Beth, ask her yourself, like, what? Like, I'm not going to tell my 6-year-old what way not to speak or what way to speak.
Every 6-year-old has an American accent.
I know, but like, you know, I just think that people are going to have their opinions, no matter, and we, like, the only difference is, like, everybody, like, there's nobody that's listening here now that can say hands on their like heart that we haven't said and made an opinion or a judgment on someone, whether it's our sister or our friend or our neighbour. Like, oh, look at them in that big car. And you do, you say it, but you check yourself. So I rein myself in and be like, just say I was like flicking on social media and there's someone on it and I normally watch them and they're just like, they're getting loads of free stuff, say, for example. And I'm like, oh, here she is again, all the free stuff. And then I'm like, why is that bothering you, Denise? Why is that bothering you that she's getting free stuff? You need to look at yourself, maybe. You need to mute her because you're not enjoying her content. And then you need to say, what did that trigger in you? Or, for example, if somebody's showing their daughter off, like me, non-stop, and I go, will she ever stop showing her daughter off? Why did that annoy you? Like, do you think that she got up this morning and intentionally went out to trigger you or to hurt you? I don't think so. So I think we need to kind of, isn't it like reflection? You know, if I'm saying, look at her in that big car. Would you like a big car, Denise? Do you feel that you deserve a big car? Do you feel that, you know, what did that trigger in you, or why did that hit you off? Because I always say hurt people hurt. So normally if someone is hurting, if someone is hurting you, it's because they're hurt. Like, you know, when you're having a fight with your husband, if he said something to you that's hurt you, you'll probably say something back to hurt him because you're hurt.
Of course, yeah.
So hurt people hurt. So,
do you think though as well, like, and you said that about the envy and the jealousy, and this is what I think, that there at the moment there is a bit of toxic positivity out there. You're smiling, let me know.
Yeah.
And I think it is down to envy and jealousy. I think that's what it is. So if someone, as you just said there, oh, look at that handbag, I really want that handbag, I'm going to, do you know what, she works hard, she's probably saving a few bob for that handbag. Do you know what, Rebecca, put your few bob away every month, and then at Christmas you're going to buy yourself that handbag. Or is your thought, and that's positivity, that's where you're thinking, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do the work and I'm going to get it. Or is it, well, I'm going to get my fella to buy that handbag, I'm going to get to my mat to buy that. Oh, how does she get that handbag? He must be this, he must be that, he must have bought it for her. So that's where I'm saying, where some people, they get that real jealousy around positivity, and they shouldn't.
yeah. I also think on another flip side of that is, why do people feel the need? There's two sides of this. Why do people feel the need to constantly show the world what they have in materials? That's one side of it. Did you buy the handbag because you genuinely wanted the handbag, or did you buy the handbag to give off the idea that you're doing really well in business and you're rich and your fella's brilliant to you? So what's the reason why you want that handbag? Make sure it's the right reason. Make sure. And if it is the fact that you want people to see you as successful, then that's okay.
Yeah.
But just know the reason. Know the reason what the want is. I also think that, you know, social media, you know, people say they don't want perfection. But if you look at the influencers that have the most following, they're perfect. So although people say they don't want perfection, they'll follow the accounts that are like perfectly grid posted white with Gucci handbag unboxing, and maybe it's so far out of their reach that they love watching it, but is it actually doing good to their soul? I, for example, like to follow women in business. Like I love watching successful women in business that juggle, that lives are very relevant to mine, because like if I follow somebody that's really successful that doesn't have children, I do follow people like that. But what I'm saying is, you can't compare yourself to somebody who's not in the same boat as you. So I love following Marissa Carter. She's married with small kids, and she's a woman in business, and I can see myself with similarities because she's juggling stuff. She's at home, she's out, not just Marissa, but just what I'm saying in general, like Ona from Mars Pharmacy. Like, but if I follow somebody like an influencer that's single, and influencing her main job, and I can't compare myself to her life because her life isn't like mine. And I always say that, I'm just going to break it down and say for my stylists. So I always say we don't do commission in my salons because I believe it does pitch people against each other, and that's just from the world that I grew up in. I worked in Peter Marks, and it was always like constant competition. That's my client, that's my client, that's my client. And I always said I want a client to be able to choose whoever they want when they walk into the salon, that Mary's not grabbing that client because she needs to feed her kids. And she, like, that's the reality of it. It's not in a bad way. Like when we were working in Peter Marks, I was so competitive. I needed extra money. So if that head of mesh was, you know, €200, that was a lot, you know, and you're dependent on it, and you're making it out in your head what your wages are going to be. It's a hard way I didn't want to run my business like that. So some of my girls start at 9:15, some finish at 5, some do Saturdays, some don't. Some work 9 to 9s, some don't. And I always say, don't compare yourself to any other stylist in here unless you have a sick mom and you're looking after your 2 brothers, because then you're like Mary. And unless you are a single mother like Michelle and you do hers. Unless, do you get me? Unless your life, are you taking in €4,000 a week? That's why she doesn't work Saturdays. Don't compare yourself to someone else's life. You are not them and they are not you. Your life isn't theirs, and do you get me? And I think that when you create a team like that, the girls are very respectful and fair to everybody individually, to everyone's individual life. Some years, some of my girls will want to climb Mount Everest and they'll do course after course. Some years, some of my girls come to me, like some of my girls are with me since the day I opened my salon. Denise, this year I just want to, like, I'll say, for example, one of my stylists said, this year, her and her husband bought a boat and they're like, I don't want to do courses this year. I want to come into work, I want to go home from work, and I want to spend the time with my family. And I'm like, cool. Next year she could be the total opposite. So it's very important when you're working on a team that you respect, and that goes for your friends, your household, and your work. Don't compare yourself to the others because you're not them and they're not you.
Do you think you're a better boss because you're a mother?
Oh, I think I'm a better boss because I learned to separate my business from me.
Okay.
I'm not Pello. Denise is not Pello. Denise is not Voodoo.
How long did it take you to get there?
Oh, I'd say probably like my 3rd year in business, I stopped taking things personally. Still, sometimes it's very hard sometimes not to, because I love my team and a lot of them have grown with me, and without them my business wouldn't be where it is today, or my brand. So it's really important that you remember, I love to see people grow, but remember who helped you grow. Don't leave them behind because they made a mistake tomorrow. Don't leave them behind because they fecked up a few times, because they're the reason that you're there now. So try and make sure that you allow people to be human on your team. Don't give up on somebody because they're going through shit in their life. They might need your support and work. So a lot of my girls have been through stuff, and I've been there to help them. And then when they've had times where they've shined, it will always outdo the times that they didn't. So I separated myself, I'd say, from my business, probably 3 years ago maybe. So I'm 6 years with Pello. And I learned to say, like, you know, when somebody's giving out about Pello, they're not giving out about you, Denise. They're just saying they don't like the way you organised, you know, something in work, or maybe, you know, like, I don't know, our gowns or towels or another. And a lot of the time, if the girls are pissy in work, they've stuff going on at home, and work might be their safe place to get away from troubles that are at home. So a lot of the times I find through the years that if someone's coming in, they're agitated, when you sit down and talk to them, it's actually probably that they're just a little bit stressed. You know, Denise, I need to work 3 days. Like, my girls and my team know this, like, they'll know who I'm talking about and who I'm not. Like, some of my girls have went from 5 days to 3 days to back to 4 days to 2 days, depending on their life and what's happening on it. And it's very important for me that I'm in it for the long haul with them. So, like, if they need to, like, if they need a little bit of a shoulder to lean on for a while, they can have it. And then they can always come back to it. Like, my manager in Dublin decided for the summer, like, I need to spend, like, her last child, I need to spend a little bit of time, more time with him. I'm like, grand, once you're still on my team, that's fine. And then come September, a few months later, she's like, actually, no, I'm going back. You know, like, so it's just, and I think that goes from your friendships to your work colleagues to your home life. Like, and obviously I'm very lucky with Brendan, my partner in Voodoo, and then our team in Voodoo as well. They're all with us since the start, and we've just grown with them as well. So I think a really, really big part of me is knowing that I'm the weakest part of my team. So everybody is of the same level or stronger than me. So I need them as much as they need me to succeed.
Tell me about your failures and how you handled them.
Failures? Oh God, if it's so, and like, you've got to remember that, like, for every success you see, there's 20 failures behind it. Like, so obviously Beth is my success from all the failed IVFs. A plan, a reset, a restart, and a plan to get there. So I believe in the end goal, but sometimes you need to be able to be flexible and be able to reassess if something's not working. With our tools, you know, a lot of that is on me because I kind of bring the tool side of it, and on MPD along with Claude and Robert. But a fail is never really a fail. And I think the word failure is gone from society now. I think people realise, what is failure like?
Is it a learning?
Is it a learning curve? Is it just rerouting you to another direction? What is failure? Like, who tells you that it's a fail? What is a fail? Is a fail not being as good as your sister at art? Like, what are you failing at? I don't think anyone's failing. I don't think there's anybody out there failing. Failing is probably when you compare it to someone else's success, but that's not you. So what are you failing at? Well, I'm actually failing at nothing, really, because I'm trying my bloody best. So that's not failing. Yeah, I failed a round of IVF, so I didn't get pregnant, but I gave it my best shot. So is that failing? I don't think it is. What is success?
Tell me about your successes.
My biggest success is to still have the people in my life that I have. My biggest success is my solid relationships, my children, my home, not my bricks and mortar, my actual inside of my home, like my unit, my stepdaughter, my which isn't, it's so funny because she's not on social media, and I sent her a picture of all of us together and I said, can I post this? And she said, no, I don't like the way I look. She's 17, like, but my biggest success is being me and bringing me, putting my best foot forward. And like I said before, yeah, I have great financial success now, but it's not my priority. It's not my everything.
I love what you said about the fact if you lose it all tomorrow, you haven't lost your ability. I love that.
No, and I think that's what defers people from jumping and believing in themselves. Is why why are you afraid of failing? Like, how is failing chasing a dream? And yeah, you mightn't get financial reward out of it, but that's not failure. That's success. You have went out and believed in yourself. And it mightn't have been the right timing. It mightn't have been the right marketing. You mightn't have been lucky. There's a whole combination of things that you need to succeed all at once, all at the same time. So for IVF, you need to have all of them things lined up to succeed. So it's no different to succeeding in business. You need to have them all lined up at the same time to succeed. It doesn't mean your idea was a failure. It means that the timing mightn't have been right for you or for that product or for that service. It doesn't mean that that module is a failure. It just means the timing might have been. Like when people say it was a failed relationship. That relationship could have survived when you were 10 years older or 5 years younger. I don't believe in the word failed or successes, because
you have to believe in successes.
What is a success though? What's success?
It's your, as you said, it's your life, it's your children, you know. It's your business, it's the inspiration that you give people.
I'd rather my success be words or impact that I left on people's lives. That for me, if somebody said, when someone says to me, I watched Beth and I kept going because I too wanted a Beth, I think that's me, life done, thank you. Like, I used to say to Mark when I had Beth, I could actually die a happy person right now because I became a mother. So I've felt that feeling. And if something happened to me tomorrow, and I'd hope that if somebody stood up and said it was because of Denise's words that I kept going, or if it was because of Denise, that would mean the world to me. Like, for somebody to say to my children, your mother said this to me and it really resonated, and because of that I didn't give up. That to me would be life made. I would love that. Definitely.
On that note, we leave it there. Yeah. Denise, this is what I'm saying, what I said during this is that I was like, there's something else with her. There's something else. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something there. She's done something. Something's happened in her life. And I'm so privileged that you shared it with me today. I really am, and shared it with everyone who's going to listen to this. Thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thanks for having me.